Thank you very, very much for joining us on this very hot day. We're not complaining, are we? We sure? It does. We don't normally get weather this good, do we? So, okay, cool. And England won as well. Hey ho. So there we go. Thank you very much, panel. I'm really excited by this topic. It's one that I have a great passion for, and I think it's probably one of the most exciting things that's coming into play. So I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves. So yeah, introduce who you are, what you do.
All right, hi folks, my name's Graeme Harper. I am Global Head of Talent Excellence at Exadel. I previously was Head of Group Resourcing at Matiya. So I've dealt with large organisations going through transformational change, small AI engineers and companies going through transformational change, and I work that out, I'll balance that up with also enhancing workforce capability.
Hi everyone, I'm Dami, Anibaba. So I'm currently at BIC and focusing on mainly HR transformation and recruitment transformation. Mainly my past roles have been doing the same thing at Publicis, at WPP and Trustpilot, mainly focusing on how do we implement AI, how to improve processes and things like that.
And I'm Jen Hulme, so I'm Head of Talent Acquisition at BPP, which is a private university. So I head up the talent acquisition function, and I'm also on a weird and wonderful secondment where I'm looking at placing our students into graduate positions with our clients once they've finished.
Cool, thank you very much. So before we kick off, we're talking about combining AI enablement and that human insight piece. If you could just kind of share what this kind of topic means to you and how you see it and interpret it.
AI enablement with human insight. To be fair, I think that right now we're moving at a tremendous pace. What I've noticed both in volume hiring when I was at Matiya and all AI engineering is the AI adoption. We need technology to keep up the pace. But the biggest challenge we've got right now is that we have to ensure that A, the data quality is there. That's always been the same, to be totally honest with you. B, we need to make sure that we've got a strong sponsor to push our drive with our narrative and also improve and help with our AI adoption. And C, we need to make sure that we've got a team, we've got a point where I've completely lost train of thought because of the heat. I'm going to blame that anyway. And if you can go on there and I'll come back very shortly. Please.
So I think for me and probably for what we're doing at BIC at the moment, it's really, I think the technology is not so much of an issue, it's how do we get people to adopt it. That's our biggest issue. The technology is actually quite easy, but then it's how do we train people, how do we also make sure we're sort of not feeding people what they already know. So we're doing that in different ways, whether that be through different platforms that we're using, also making sure we have champions across the business to implement different processes, and that's been quite successful, yeah.
And just to add to that, I think it's the adoption of managers and everyone, isn't it, and those processes, but also the adoption from our candidates. Like, a lot of people are very, very wary and very scared of using AI, of worrying about bias, discrimination, wasting their time, sending their application into this sort of pit void that you hear them talking about on LinkedIn. So it's how do you use AI to better technology but keep that trust and that human connection, because at the end of the day that's why people apply for roles. People respond to people, so keeping that empathy and those skills that AI don't have in the process. And the thing that frustrates me more than anything when you hear from leaders, I'm sure you've all heard the same thing, let's fix recruitment with AI, and it's like, well, what are we fixing? What are we fixing? It's not as simple as, no disrespect to any of these vendors, but walk around Recfest and pick a shiny vendor and be like, okay, cool, we've used AI now, we can tick that off. It's like, what problem are we actually trying to fix, and what are we trying to protect? And I think that's a balance that needs to be struck.
I totally agree. And first and foremost, the technology part is easy. My colleague Alex, who's come over from the US, will be saying that's very different. The technology part is the hardest part for us. But I think the key question here for me is like, when we think about AI and when we introduced it, I guess it was around potentially, is it going to help us with job descriptions? Is it going to help us write better CVs, etc.? And then I think it's kind of leading into this kind of sourcing piece and how do we attract talent better, etc. I think the question for me when it comes to TA, and I don't know if I'm right in this, and thinking about how are we as TA teams going to exist alongside AI, or how does AI exist alongside us? You talked about hiring your first talent engineer, right?
Yeah.
So kind of talk us through what was the driver behind that and everything else?
Yeah, so we hired a talent engineer at BIC. Essentially what we want them to come in and do is, one, look at all of our processes. So to your point, actually, what isn't working, what works. We have not the best HS system, I won't say what it is at the moment, but very old one, the worst one. And so we're looking at, okay, because we can't change it, we can't get it out because it's connected to so many different modules. What is it that we want to fix within it? How can we focus on recruitment? And then what AI can we build? And we're building everything internally. I know most people's first point of call is to sort of look at vendors and bring in an AI to screen, bring in an AI to maybe do like work with hiring managers, etc. But how can we build something internally end to end? And that's what we're doing at the moment. And our main driver behind that is so we can build, we can iterate until we get to perfection, essentially. Yeah.
Okay. Graeme.
Yeah, sorry, I'm back in the room. So where we're going with the, where I see we're going with AI is that basically we've got different paths in terms of volume hiring. That solves, when we're looking at it, we're trying to enhance candidate experience from a point where we're always on, so we give a validation very quickly to a candidate. We are looking at searching, screening, scheduling, etc. Really taking a lot of the heavy lifting. The reason and where I'm going with this is that when I was at Matiya, we were looking at it going, finally, we actually can leverage technology to move us from a point of order takers to a point where we actually influence and we can actually truly partner with the business. I think the other part what I was mentioning, the C part, was the fact that we have data quality, we have a strong sponsor, and then also we need to move away from a talent acquisition function that's siloed of, hey, by the way, here's an instruction, this is what we've got, you need to fill the jobs now, to a point where we truly partner with the business. We have the technology now to leverage, to do our heavy lifting, to support and provide and attract and engage. But what we need to do moving forward is bring recruiters in that question the data, question the output that's coming in. Is this valid? Is this right? Provide the insights, truly build up relationships and partnerships with the business moving forward, and have critical thought. I'll be honest, we aren't there with the balance yet, because what I'm seeing within AI right now is it's making us tremendously fast. And what I find with the team is we're doing the do. We don't have necessarily enough time to actually think and improve the function and ask the right questions. So I think there's going to be a point where we're really balancing up AI and technology and getting the human part right, because human judgment is one of the key factors for us moving forward.
Anyone to input on that?
Yeah, I mean, what I've seen, so we're going through a bit of a transformation at the moment. My company, BPP, we sell AI courses, so we are very, like at the front, very, very gifted, very lucky in some ways that there is a lot of adoption, there's a lot of resources that we have. But what I found is everything that I think is obvious about recruitment, everyone that people in this room think is obvious about recruitment, people outside of RecFest, they don't think that's obvious, we are experts in what we do. And what I found is when you're working with very, very technical people, AI experts, your software developers, everyone's got ideas about recruitment, and we're dangerously close to everything becoming really, really over-engineered because they don't have people with our expertise, with our human insight to say, hold on a second, like, what are you doing here? Like, this is way more confusing than it needs to be. This is what the process should look like. And having that in will help you. Yes, you can add, but rather than just throwing glitter at it, no disrespect, they are doing a fantastic job. But keeping it as simple as possible. And I think having our expertise is what's going to have that. And having us to upskill ourselves with, to have a little bit of knowledge of what they're doing so we can advise, well, let's do this instead. And having that influence over them is going to be able to drive that combination.
I mean, for us, when we're speaking to clients, one of the things we kind of gather is that the clients are excited about what the potential of AI means for them when it comes to attracting and hiring talent. There is a fear of, well, but how do we actually embed this in a way that is really effective for us as an organization? And also, how does that deliver the results we're looking for? I want to put this out to you all here. How many, put your hands up if you think that AI is going to replace us as talent acquisition specialists like 100%. Just asking the question. 80%? 70%? 50%? Okay, there we go. So we'll go 50-50. Who fancy just you're sharing with the panel, I guess, a vision that they see of what that 50% will look like, and we can have a conversation around it, right? Who wants to go? Yeah? Okay, well, come on. Okay, I'll bring the mic to you. It's all right.
guess the goal, right, is to do all the stuff that we don't want to do and recruiters complain about. So it takes away scheduling and offer management and like contract creation, and we can do the kind of consultative bit and get on with that. So I suppose, yeah, it should be like at least, I would probably even say 40% rather than 50%.
Yeah.
Your question is interesting because it's different. What we think we can replace versus what our companies want us to replace of ourselves,
Yeah.
right? So like if you're asking our CEOs how much of us they want to replace, I'm sure that number is much higher than what we would say. But I think we all know the human aspect that we do bring to the table. So like I work at a company where we have a huge number of AI tools at our disposal, and they're actually quite good. And I have used them strategically to cut out the most time-consuming portions of my job, and to lead into more strategic working with my hiring managers, doing those high judgment tasks. It doesn't necessarily save me time, right? It just allocates my time to those more important things. But it has made my job more interesting, and I've been recruiting for over 20 years.
Sorry, I suppose the question is, the more important question is how intelligently we will use AI. And I think the ones that combine technology with, good, strong judgment and clear workforce design and honest market intelligence are going to be the one how TAs are going to change.
So to the panel, I mean, we're all sitting on tables where we make decisions, right? And we hear about how we see AI kind of making a difference. So the mundane tasks, the ability to focus on what we do best, how can we still leverage that human insight? How are you guys sort of pitching that internally when you're having this conversation? Because your CEOs are saying, listen, AI can help me get, you guys are 100 strong, 200 strong, right? Well, AI can probably reduce that by 199, right? And just keep you.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
we're 250.
But, 250.
Actually.
Okay, so you go.
Yeah.
So you go through.
So I think one thing is how do you make sure your team is indispensable? And this is something I've always done when I've led a recruitment team, is making us either cost center, making us profitable. Like how can we show our commercial side of the business, whether that be through employer branding. So for example, worked at Tangle Teaser, and we partnered with our marketing team, one to be a funnel of candidates, but then also to be a funnel of potential customers. And there's tricks you can really do with recruitment and partner with the other sides of the business to be, more of the forefront with your senior leadership team, etc. And then also, are your TA team advisors, to your point of how are they showing up to the business? Are they showing up of, this is our role, I'm going to recruit this role, it's filled within 23 days, great. But what were the insights they provided throughout that conversation? What are the insights they're providing retrospectively to that process, to that hiring manager? And that's the value. And then also candidate experience. Candidates love a good experience. You can't beat a good experience, whether that's through shopping or through recruitment. You can't fulfill that with AI, it's not possible. So how do you make sure that you're slightly indispensable in a way and irreplaceable because you've built great processes, and then how do you make sure you're also leveraging AI to be faster? Yeah.
My head of solutions engineering uses the word how to give TA teams a seat on the table. Is that correct? Yeah, a seat on the table, right? So how do we, everything you just said there, I think from a TA perspective is like, how do we leverage this wonderful tool, technology piece that's coming into play to enable us to have a seat at the table, right? Because we have probably worked a bit silo, haven't we? In terms of, your job is just to find great people, right? That's what I'm asking you to do. And now it's a bit more that, well, those great people are doing different things in terms of how they apply for jobs, where they see jobs, what they expect from jobs, what they expect from the candidate journey experience, etc. So yeah, Graeme, would you like to build on that?
Yeah, I think there's two ways we can frame this, to be honest with you. I think the first one is when we're looking at AI itself, shaping it in the business is saying, look, we're one of the earliest adopters of AI. We have to use it, the application rate, the sheer volume that we're dealing with. There are benefits that we can shape and transcend into the rest of the business. So let's use us as a test bed on it and be the adopters of it, but also the influencers. I think if we shaped it in that way, because not because it's easy. I don't want to shape it to the business and say, look, it's because it's easy and you can bring it into TA and that's how it is. It's because it's incredibly challenging. We're dealing with highly sensitive data that has a lot of legislation around it. This is a really good time to really test bed what's right and then make sure that we mitigate any risk before we then pass it in. So that's one of the shapes that we can do. The other thing, to Dami's point earlier on, was I totally agree. If we can bring in the scheduling that we were talking about earlier on and save a recruiter 8 hours a week, the main thing is not to say, and the main thing is to fight against it, because I appreciate that shareholders and C-suite might see this differently, but to shape that in a point of, we've still got hiring challenges. We're struggling to find AI engineers within the UK. We reappropriated those 8 hours, and we brought that into creating a talent pool that effectively meant that we could, time to hire and time to fill was much reduced, and there's the value add on it. So really just making sure that we're aligning to real ROI, that the leadership can see tangible impact on. I think that's the key of how we shape the narrative, not a case of we've saved that time and that's it. And my last point is the recommendation: if you're a transactional recruiter, that's where I would be most scared. The rest of the time is people that truly partner, ask the questions and provide the insight through reporting, etc. They will be enhanced with the technology that's coming in.
Okay, you've made our CPO very excited with some of the things you were talking about there. Jen, I mean, a space I'm really passionate about underneath, believe it or not, is early careers, right?
Yep.
And I think this is a really exciting opportunity for talent. Early careers coming into the talent acquisition or the space of AI. I mean, how are you as BPP seeing it, and kind of, you're placing now students into these AI roles, and obviously organizations giving you their requirements. How, just kind of give us a shape of how you're seeing it.
Very, very worrying. So I'm doing a lot of, so we are an apprenticeship provider, so we place apprenticeships. That market hasn't really changed. We still place a lot of apprenticeships, which is really, really good. In terms of graduates into graduate positions, we're getting the same feedback. We've cancelled our grad scheme this year. We don't need them, it's being replaced by AI. And if you think about like where you are in your career today, so I'm head of talent acquisition and I redesign functions, but how did I get the skills to do that? I worked in really shit functions and I hit the phone hours and hours and hours for years on end to learn the trade, and replace recruitment with anything. Can you be a finance director if you don't spend the first year coding invoices and sending and seeing what the problems are? So then if you think about who are our future leaders if we're replacing these roles with AI, and I think it's not so much about the value to business, but I think we do need to be thinking about what's the social impact and what is the right ethical thing to do to make sure we've got a future workforce.
I'm going to throw a couple. I used to work at Arch Apprenticeships, so I know BPP very well.
Can I ask a question? Just really interestingly here, out of all the organisations that are in here, how many have had people laid off because and AI has been the fundamental reason for it? Just as a show of hands, more than anything.
Okay. Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, no, the reason being is because, look, I think we are seeing layoffs because of automation. I don't think that, my honest opinion is artificial intelligence does not have human judgment, doesn't have an ability. If it did, it wouldn't hallucinate. It would be consistent, and we wouldn't have to put guardrails in it to make sure it provides some form of consistency in output. So my point is that automation's taking jobs and taking some of the tasks away, and that's impacting. I don't believe it's AI in the sense. I think that's been a lot of narrative coming from people who are pushing it around and trying to sell their idea as the next thing to take over. And a lot of CEOs, etc., have bought into that because it appeases the shareholders. I genuinely feel that AI's impacted our business, but automation's impacted. It hasn't been AI itself.
Jen, you had your hand up. So do you want to share that exact performance, or is it what Graeme is saying in terms of it being more automation versus actual AI itself?
I would say that it has been AI as well. I think automation has been around for a while, right? As is AI, but it seems to have just landed all of a sudden. But yeah, there's been redundancies because of AI. Not necessarily reduction in headcount. There's been a redesign of roles as a result. So that's why everyone's focusing on skills, right? And how can we move people from A to B, or how can we upskill people into this position? And one thing we've done at BPP, as some of the people at the back here said, 40% of us being replaced by AI, which I think is about right. But then it's thinking about, well, what are we doing with that 40%? Like, what other skills are we developing ourselves? And then more importantly, who are we telling that to? Because if we're not telling the finance director and they're sat there, they're like, oh, 40% gone, let's get rid of 40% then. Like, they're not waiting to challenge us. That's their perception. But if we go to them and say, with this time saved, we are looking at a big project, like a project that my team's doing is all about role redesign and how we can, ironically building an agent to do it, but look at what roles we've historically recruited and what does that look like in 6 months' time, in 12 months' time, and how can we match that to the skills of the people we have at the business, specifically ones that might be at risk of redundancy because of AI or automation. And shouting about that has taken that thought out of, hopefully, the finance director's mind that 40% of us is no longer needed because we're adding value in a different way and we're letting them know.
I mean, you got 250 people, you've just hired a talented engineer, there's going to be a lot of transformation going on. Do you see it being more, the changes are going to be led more automation? Why is it because of?
Yeah, so but as I said, we have a very heavy ATS HRIS system and everything's very much embedded into that. So we are trying to automate at the moment, which is our goal, is to, use that. But at the same time, going back to my earlier point of adoption, right? If people aren't doing it correctly, it doesn't really matter how many tools you really implement because no one's going to be faster. They're not going to be better. You're still going to have the same results. And that's what our focus is on, is how do we make sure people are using the tools correctly in the way of the goal where we want to get to. So that's like our main focus.
My question now is, if you think about where we're going and we talk about enablement, the human piece, et cetera, from a talent acquisition perspective, where do we feel the biggest impact and positive impact AI is going to have on the talent acquisition function?
Look, I can say it from a volume perspective. It's going to give validation very quickly. I think we've changed into a society that demands something. Used to be a place where, I'm sorry, showing my age here, but used to be, if you wanted a movie, you had to go to a shop, pick it up and get it. Nowadays it's I know that's that, eh? So nowadays, everything is instantaneous. I think what I'm very hopeful for, and what I'm also very disappointed in, is that we've been talking about AI for, 2-3 years now. We still have legacy challenges in ghosting and poor candidate experience. Nothing's really moved the dial too much. I'm hopeful for automation to come in and provide validation and awareness and update people. I think we need to balance that up with a human touch through the process, but I think from a volume hiring, I think it's going to benefit. And from that point of they get information and have improved that experience all in. And then from a sort of white collar perspective, I think that's going to help in terms of the deep dives and the further insight to allow us to pivot and look at, to your points earlier on around skills, look at being able to open up talent markets that we'd never thought possible because we're enabled more with the technology.
Dan?
Yeah, I think also one thing is, yes, it is going to change, but I think because there's been so much talk about it online, to your point of like, people have been speaking about it for so many years, it hasn't actually changed that much if you're actually working in internal recruitment teams. Yes, some things are faster, but ultimately we're still using legacy processes. We're still using the ATS end-to-end. You could be using any ATS system. They've implemented AI within their system. You're still having to cross-check it with human eyes, right? We're not at a stage where you can fully leave the screening stage to AI. We're not at that. I don't think we're going to be at that stage for a while. I wouldn't feel comfortable leaving, because I can sometimes see some CV, actually I would speak to that candidate, right? So I think we're not quite there yet. It's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to take a lot of insights from actual recruiters on the ground to say, this is what good looks like in the system. Yeah.
Jen?
And has anyone been interviewed by AI? Look at the faces you pull it. Like, I feel the same. Oh, I had a weird experience. I was interviewed by a bot. And then they tried to recommend me jobs at a recruitment agency, and I was like, honestly, I'm not going back to that. Like, you don't have to know me as a person well enough to know that's not happening. So I think it's as well, like, do we have the confidence to leave it as recruiters? No. But also, like, what would the uptake be for candidates? Really, really small and really bad and really worrying like your reputation as well. Like all it takes is one weird and wonderful interview for people to take to socials, and suddenly that's your reputation. So I think it's both sides, but we're not quite ready for.
No, I mean, I think I'm really excited, but I think there's going to be, it's a huge opportunity across the board, whether we look at how candidates actually find jobs, and how we as organizations put ourselves out into the marketplace, and then how do we solve that problem around, because let's be realistic, you know, how, if I ask you a question, for instance, you know, when you applied, without showing our ages here, but when you first, when you both, all of you applied for jobs, how did you go about that process?
I had a paper CV.
Paper CV, yeah?
When I first applied for paper CV.
Paper CV, yeah.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, okay. How many people have a paper CV? Right, that's already changed, right? How many of you use ChatGPT to find out what fridge you want to buy? Or before you research anything before you buy it? Yeah? How many of you feel comfortable doing that if you're looking for a job? Yeah, you see? And you know, so when you think about where we're going, for us for talent acquisition, when we're going into us as product development, you know, we're still, as you said, still trying to learn about what's going to be happening. But there's another change coming down the line where, you know, your AI agent is going to be something that you use to find a job or apply for a role or whatever that is. And then it's a question for us as TA teams, how are we going to be able to understand who is actually applying, and do that person have the skill sets that they have to play? What does that world look like? Is that scary, exciting?
Exciting, because news great, right? News
More
great
candidates. More candidates.
Well,
okay.
we don't want more candidates.
Anything else?
I don't think we've found the balance yet. As much as we've had it around for a while, I think we're still trying to navigate finding out exactly. I think it gives us what we need. I think the human element is just struggling to try and figure out where it can fit within organisations, how leadership can view it, and how we can actually adapt to it. So I think we're going through a bit of an evolution at the moment, but LLMs, etc., are here to stay, and they're going to help us with productivity, 100%.
Jen?
Yeah, I think it's exciting to a certain extent, but also, like, I've called people who've applied for a role that I'm recruiting for, and they have no clue who I am, and they have no clue who BPP is. So suddenly I'm wasting my time selling who we are and what we're doing to a candidate who may or may not be interested. They're giving a terrible first impression because I'm looking to interview them, and they're like, who are you again? So I think there's a real balance. I think it can be used very well to apply, but like to my example, I'm not applying to a load of recruitment agencies, and I'm wasting their time if I am. And so if I clicked auto apply to all of these 250 roles you think I'm right for, I'm wasting their time. So I think, to Graham's point, there is a balance, and we've not found it yet.
I've noticed we only got about 2 minutes. I could talk about this all day. So any questions you want to pose to the panel? Yeah? Okay, I'll come to you.
Thank you. Dami, you mentioned something earlier about a talent engineer, and I think it's quite interesting because in our company we're hiring for something called an AI engineer, which I think is quite similar in a sense that we're looking at ways that we can optimize the recruitment workflow and stuff like that. Where do you think that puts talent acquisition professionals moving forward? And we're quite lucky that we get multiple different tools at our disposal, so Claude Cowork and things like that. Do you feel that those professionals that aren't getting the tools because companies maybe have like concerns and stuff like that, do you feel that they're maybe being left behind, or what do you see the future of talent being, I suppose?
Yeah, good question. So I think one, with the person that we've hired, they're very, very highly skilled within AI, like they can build pretty much anything. Number two, what we're doing is we're getting our recruiters to build agents. So we're getting them to learn, because I think that's it. If you start a new job, right, and you use a new ATS system, you're only going to learn how to use it by using it. So we're getting them to build agents. We're getting them to build agents for different parts of the processes so that they can understand how AI works. And any tools that we do implement, whether we build them in-house or we bring in a vendor, we're getting them to be in those first conversations, understand exactly how that tech works. Because I think that's the only way you can really bring the team on board. Because I think historically, if you think about how TAs worked, it's like you're head of TA and you tell your team, this is our new system that we're bringing in, go and use it. Bring them in from that first conversations so that they're actually building their knowledge up. So that's what we're doing.
Any more questions? Oh, okay. I'll come there and then I'll come here, and then I might be told off for running out of time.
Oh, a microphone is scary. Do you think we're actually just over-exaggerating how much AI is going to change for us? I mean, when recruitment agencies had job boards come in, they said that was the end of recruitment agencies, and then programmatic came in, and then it was the end of job boards, and now actually AI's come in. Is it just an enhancement of what we're going to use, and really is that much going to change?
Aye, so 100%. The people that are hitting the narratives is like folk like Dario from Anthropic, we've got Sam Altman from OpenAI. They've got an agenda. At the end of the day, I think Copilot was the same. They said it's going to take our jobs 9 months, 6 months, whatever. It's not. It's there to sell the product more than anything else. And I think that's where, to your point earlier, Dami, or was it Jen, around adoption, there's a fear of adoption because people think as soon as I bring it in, it's going to take my job. It isn't. I stand by it. The OpenAI, it's not artificial intelligence. We feed it a lot of data, it spits out a lot of narratives, and we still haven't got it to a point where it's given us anything that's consistent all in. So I can't rely on it, and we need human judgment in it. So the answer to your question is yes, there's a lot of hype on it, but there's a real tremendous, it's a great productivity tool, and I think everybody in this room has felt the impact of it because we are moving at an incredible pace because of it.
Hi there. Thank you, Raj, first of all, for the insights. I will go after actually the human insight part of this discussion, because I agree that AI will not fully replace us, but it's replacing a lot of the grunt work where we gained our human intelligence that we are applying. So in the future, or the next generation, or my children, how will they gain this human intelligence? How we will not lose this human intelligence? What would you recommend for your child to do if you have, or nephews or whoever, if you don't have children?
Who wants to go for that? Jen, you got this.
Well, what can't AI do? It doesn't have empathy. It can't influence. It can't tell my hiring manager when they're doing something stupid, illegal, well, maybe illegal, but stupid, not in the best view of a business. So think about like that, like AI is going to take away scheduling interviews, and I am more than happy to, because it is an absolute pain. So what would I tell my kids? My kids are only 4 and 5, but and I can already see how they're adopting technology a lot better than me, but what other skills do they need that are probably going to be more important in 10 years' time? I don't know, but I think those soft skills, those people skills are definitely going to be what I'm going to be pushing for them.
I would like to, sorry Dami, I'm holding this. I would like it to be a point where they're enabled, they're not reliant on AI. I think there's people who were talking about it. I was in a booth earlier on and they said that we're now moving away from, if you need to be healthy, you go to the gym, you go on a fitness regime. There's a point where, because of the tools, we need some form of cognitive fitness regime for our minds, because basically we're not even writing emails anymore. We're literally spitting in a little bit of words and it's giving us something that's clear. So there are things like reading a book, having a point where you go for a walk without any phone and any connectivity, and having a point where you're sitting there going, I'm going to solve something, or I'm going to try and think of something, so that it gives you that brain space, because our minds are moving at an incredible rate at the moment, need to slow down a little bit. So we need to find the balance for that as well.
Wonderful. I'm going to go back to host mode because we are running late. If you can all get out your phones, on the back of your chairs there is a QR code. Please feel free to leave some feedback. Feedback is a gift. And thank you so much for joining. And please put your hands together for the rest of the panel, which is Kufa, Graeme and Dami.
Thank you.
That was spot on, thank you.